Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibina al-Mustafa. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa salam. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawm ad-din. Wa ba'd. We'd like to welcome you all to our Ramadan intensive preparation course as we get ready for this blessed month of Ramadan. Before we begin, we'd like to excuse we're on super color time, super CPT today, so please forgive us. But alhamdulillah, we are, we're up and running. We had some technical difficulties, and so we'll try to make the best of it, inshallah ta'ala. So we thank you all for coming out. For those tuning, we were kind of skeptical of how we're going to do it online, so we are going to live stream it, at least my session, inshallah, because East is already known. Ustad Issa Bey is already known around the world, so I need to get some kind of ratings to catch up to him, inshallah. So thank you all for attending in person, as well as those who are joining us online, inshallah. May Allah bless you all. So in the interest of time, we're going to get started right away. All right, so I have my presentation is a Ramadan review. So we're going to go over the requirements of Ramadan and some very important things that I think that needs to be discussed once and for all. Also, I had a printout of the PowerPoint presentation, but again, CPT time, we ran out of ink and we got this this printout. I don't know how to change the cartridges. So inshallah, maybe we'll have them available before everyone leaves. All right. So you all can, I sent the email to some of you so you can see the presentation, but it can still be interactive, inshallah. So I believe the people online, the sisters can see it upstairs. All right, so inshallah we'll go. All right, so we started as we the Ramadan Prep Weekend Intensive Fundraiser, and this is exclusive from the Kubai School and Islamic Center, inshallah. Let me start right there. Okay. Okay, so I gave the welcome. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, La yashkurullah ma la yashkurul nas. That whoever hasn't thanked Allah is the one who hasn't thanked the people in reality. So I want to thank you all again for attending. And I want to give a special shout out to the Kubai School administration for the sisters, primarily sisters who made this all possible, had everything together. And we're just waiting on us to get it together as usual, So alhamdulillah. So we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them holding us down. All right, so we're talking about getting ready for Ramadan. So we're talking about the fourth pillar of Islam, which is called SAWM, or fasting. So what is the meaning of SAWM? Anybody? What is the actual meaning of SAWM? Nobody knows? It's fasting, right? But what kind of fasting? So in the Quran, SAWM is in the Quran is abstinence or refraining from talking. Refraining from talking. All right. So, is anyone familiar with the ayah in the Quran that talks about SAWM? All right. So this is something you should know as a reference. Surah Maryam, ayah 26. All right. Anybody familiar with that ayah? Well, Allah said about Maryam alayhi salam that she said, so he said to her, so eat and drink and be contented. And if you see someone from amongst humans, you say, indeed, I have vowed to the most merciful a fast, abstention. And so I will not speak today to any man. So in this ayat, the technical meaning of, or the linguistic meaning of SAWM is to not speak. Because in the ayat, it says that she had already eaten and drank first, and then she made a vow to fast or to not speak to anyone. So that's what SAWM actually means, to refrain from something or abstain from something, and particularly not to talk. All right. But the technical meaning, what's the technical meaning of SAWM? Anybody want to take a stab at it? We got a couple notables in here. I'm not going to put them on blast. Go ahead.
Not eating during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Only eating at nighttime.
Yes. Yes. So the technical meaning of SAWM, the Shari'i meaning, or the Islamic meaning, Islamic law meaning, is to abstain with special characteristics. So it's not just not talking, but other special characteristics. And so what are those special characteristics? Abstain from what? When we fast, what are we abstaining from?
Food, drink,
Uh-huh.
sin.
Yeah, sin, food, drink, intercourse, and bad characteristics. And also with intercourse, that includes masturbation, and also self-induced vomiting. This one thing is included. Self-induced vomiting. All right, so fasting has three pillars. Anybody know those pillars? Oh, and by the way, some of the things that I'm going to mention is primarily based from the Shafi school, but you'll find other rulers in different schools. All right, so there's little, variances there that's neither here nor there, but you can always find different little variations. So fasting has three pillars. What's the first thing you have to have before fasting? Three pillars. Intentions. You have to have a niyyah. You have to leave the things that will break the fast, like the ones we just mentioned. And what's the third one? Consciousness, kind of. Huh? Yeah. No, the third pillar is you yourself. That you have to be ready to fast. You are part of the one of the three pillars. So the three pillars is to make the intention to fast, because every act of worship has to have a specific intention. Leaving the things that break the fast, and you have to be part of observing the fast. All right. So Ramadan is when the fasting takes place. These fasting with the special characteristics. So Ramadan is which month of the Islamic calendar? The 9th month. Is Ramadan a holy month or a sacred month? It's a sacred month? Okay. Or a blessed month. How many sacred months are there? 4 sacred months. Anybody want to take a stab at them, or this is too much like school?
Rajab.
Okay, Rajab. Uh-huh. Muharram. Somebody said Muharram. Rajab, Dhul Hijjah. Yeah, Dhul Qa'dah. All right. So it's Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, the 11th and 12th months, then Muharram, then you skip a month, which is Safar, and then Rajab is the next month. All right. No, not Rajab, I'm sorry. No, it's Rabiul Awwal. No, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, no, Rajab is the 7th month. 7th month. Okay. All right, so the word Ramadan is derived from the Arabic word Ramadan, right, which means intense scorching heat. Intense scorching heat. So this is what the word Ramadan comes from. Ramadu and Ramadan, which means sun-baked sand. So this is what, when we're fasting in Ramadan, usually is during warm months. Of course, in the region that we live in, the seasons change, and now the days are getting shorter. But in the desert, it's always hot when they're fasting, And so Ramadan is the prescribed month to observe these special, abstaining with special characteristics, abstaining from food, drink, intercourse, uh, intercourse with oneself, self-induced vomiting, and it is from a time from pre-dawn to sunset. So this is what SAWM means in the Islamic law: to abstain from food, drink, relations, and bad behavior from the pre-dawn until when the sun sets. And where's the order from the Quran? Anybody know the order from the Quran about the fast? Ustad Isa mentioned in the last talk. It's like a prescription. Yeah, you have ladina amanu. Okay, alhamdulillah. I told you we had some notables in here, man. So the brother recited the ayat from the Quran in Surah Baqarah, ayat 183. O you who believe, kutiba siyamu ala ladina min qablikum. Oh, alaikum salam, alaikum siyam. Kama kutiba ala ladina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may develop taqwa, which we mentioned in the last talk. Taqwa is having a consciousness or having a healthy fear that brings you closer to Allah, because you're scared of the things that will lead you away from Him, so it pushes toward them. Or taqwa can mean to build a fortress between you and those things that will lead you to earn Allah's displeasure. All right, so this is what Ramadan is: fasting during the day. We all know this stuff. This is the ABCs. Okay, in the ninth month of Islamic calendar. So those who are obligated to fast, that there are basically four categories. That one has to be Muslim, right? They have to have what's called taklif. What is taklif? Being accountable. They're reaching the age of accountability, which means they have to be balig, they reach pubescent, and they have to have their senses. They have to have aql. The other one is having ability, which someone whose health is not impacted by fasting, or in other words, a chronic illness. A chronic illness, right? Not if someone has a small, slight headache or a couple sniffles and they got a little fever and they like, oh, I can't fast. No, a chronic illness, that's the one who has a chronic doesn't have to fast, but the one whose health is who's not impacted by fasting, they are obligated to fast. And the person who is what's called mukim, who is a resident and they are not traveling, they are obligated to fast. And then one of the people who are recommended to fast is the children who are the age of tamyiz. What is tamyiz? Anyone know? So there's a difference between one who is mukallaf and one who is tamyiz. Yeah, I'm trying to see who. So tamyiz is the age of discernment where kids kind of know right from wrong. They say it's like things when they can dress themselves, like know how to brush their teeth, things that they can do on their own to show independence, but they haven't reached the level of mukallaf. So it's around the age 6 or 7 years old. So that's around the time that we should be encouraging our kids to fast. And just like when they reach 7, we should be encouraging them to pray, even though it's not an obligation on them. But when they reach the age of mukallaf or taklif, which is pubescent for boys, 3 ways, and for girls 1 way. And we all know that, right? Okay, so when boys either reach the age of puberty of 15, pubic hair, or nocturnal emission. Those are the 3 ways when a boy becomes a man, basically. And for the females is when she reaches her cycle. And that's the age of taklif, when they become responsible for all of the obligations in Islam. All right, so those are the obligations of fast: being Muslim, reaching the age of accountability, having your aql presence, having the ability to fast, being a resident, not traveling, and tamyiz is not an obligation, but we should start getting our kids ready. So we said about who's obligated to fast. Who is exempt from fasting? Yeah, someone who is majnoon, who is not that don't have their akal. All right, non-Muslim. All right, an apostate, someone who apostates from Islam, they're not obligated to fast or exempt from fasting. Children who haven't reached the age of puberty, someone who has the inability to fast because of health, such as old age or chronic illnesses. So chronic illnesses, it means that from one illness that someone is unlikely to recover from, or an illness that would be agitated by the fast. So, for instance, someone like has cancer or something like something that's a real sickness. They are exempt from the fasting. A person who is a traveler, which is called a musafir, and a traveler in the Shafi school. Now, you might read this in different schools, but a traveler has to reach a distance to be considered musafir, that they travel at least 48 miles, and they should be leaving before dawn as a traveler. That they should be leaving before dawn. And other schools, it may be different. I'm not really sure. But in the Shafi school, because nowadays you can cover 48 miles and you could come back in the same day. But if you intended to go on a real journey, like you're traveling, you leave out before dawn, that's a person who would be exempt from fasting. And of course, these rulings are different. Like if you find another rule in another school, I mean, you can ride with it. But, normally when you are following a curriculum as far as like fiqh, you should stick to your school. You should stick to your school. That would be a whole nother class we have to discuss. But 48 miles and leaving before dawn. The people who are exempt from fasting is a woman on her cycle from postnatal bleeding, which after having a child, the regular cycle, and a woman who is pregnant or breastfeeding who fears harm for the child. So it is up to the woman's discretion if she wants to fast. It's like, so pregnant women do fast, but if they feel like it's going to be a hardship, then they shouldn't fast. So they have to make that decision. And then the people who are exempt from fasting, they have to make up the days. What is that called in Islam when you have to make up the days of fasting? Anybody know?
Video.
No. Qada, yeah. Qada is when you have to make up the fasts because you are exempt from these reasons, like, you're traveling and things like that. And that's for a woman who's on a cycle, all the days she missed, she has to make up those days, right? But the inability to fast, like for a sickness or anything like that, it requires fidya. What is fidya?
Charity.
Fidya is feeding the people because of your inability to fast. So someone who has a chronic illness and they can't fast, then they should feed a person for every day that they're not able to fast. All right. So they don't have to make up those days, but it's only if the illness is if they're likely to recover from it, then they have to fast. But, like someone who's really sick, and, I remember times where, we had healthy, able-bodied brothers and, I can't fast, Aki. What do you mean? Man, I got a headache. I'm going to give you a headache, man. So those are exempt from fasting. The person was not Muslim. And this is important because, Ramadan, a lot of people, you find out a lot of non-Muslims observing the fast for health reasons. They are exempt from fasting. And I'm of the view that, if somebody that's inclined to Islam, we should encourage them. But, it's almost like, man, this is our tradition. Like, you don't see us on Ash Wednesday doing putting no cross on our thing, so don't mess with our stuff, But, sometimes it can be a way to someone accepting Islam. So maybe it's help them out. All right. So non-Muslim, apostate, children who haven't reached puberty, inability because of an old age or chronic illness, a traveler, and a woman on her cycle or postnatal bleeding. Okay. So now this is the meat of the technicalities that we're talking about, because this is going to get really, I don't know if it's going to be controversial, but it may. All right. So when does Ramadan begin? Huh? Right, the sighting of the moon. So on the PowerPoint, you all can't see it. I was supposed to have printout, so I put this thing with Jim Carrey and it said, "Well, duh, it starts in Ramadan, right? That's when the fast starts." But there's a sign when the fast actually starts, right? And this is what we're going to be talking about today: the moon sighting. You know, how many of you familiar with these moon sighting wars? Okay. Oh, okay. So we're going to discuss this a little bit, inshallah. So the ayah in the Quran is in Surah Baqarah, ayat 185. And it says that whoever sights the new moon of the month, then let him fast it. Whoever sights the moon, whoever sees it, then let him fast. And so then there's a hadith that's collected in Bukhari and Muslim. The Abdullah ibn Umar, radiallahu anhu, he reported that the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, observe the fast when you see it, when you see the moon of Ramadan, and break the fast when you see it. But if the sky is overcast and you cannot see it, then act on estimation. And what he means by this is that you count Sha'aban as 30 days. So when the month of Sha'aban comes and then it comes the 29th night, or the 29th night, which is the 29th day, you start looking for the moon then. If you don't see it then you count Sha'aban as 30 days and you start Ramadan. So you don't fast on the day of doubt, which could be one of those days. Because how many in Islam, a month is 29 or 30 days. So that's something we should remember. It's not set in the Islamic calendar. Not like us, we have, it used to be a system in January, all the 31 days and 30 days. In February has 29 days, and then it's a leap year with its 28 days. I think this was a leap year, right? Yeah, so all of that, that. Anybody remember that from school? Like they had like a rhythm?
Leap year is 29 days.
Oh, the leap year is 29 days. See, why? I forgot all about that stuff. But y'all remember they used to teach in school how you supposed to know which month has 30 and 31 days? It was something like that.
Like this. January, February, March. In between your knuckles. January is 31, February. Every month on your knuckle is 31.
So you put the months on your knuckles?
Yeah. and then this right here, from this hand, that's June, July. Because back to back in the summer, June and July, or is it August, July, August, whatever month that is. They 31 days. They're the only 2 months that's back to back.
Yeah, there was a system. That's what I was saying, alhamdulillah. But the way you learned it. But in Islam, there ain't no system. It's either when you sight the moon at the 29th night or not, you complete 30 days of each month. So this is what we will be operating from. So to kind of put an end to this moon sighting fiasco, right? So it says whoever sights the moon of the month, let them fast, and then observe the fast 29 or 30 days. All right. So go ahead. Go ahead.
So that's basically like saying if you didn't see the moon yourself, then you have to sight the moon yourself, right? Instead of going off of word.
Well, you can either sight the moon yourself or people that are trustworthy that sights it. It should be like 2 trustworthy witnesses who report it, or anyone who knows this how to sight, and they're someone that you trust, that you could take their word for it. So this is we're going to get into a part of it. So there are 3 positions about the moon sighting, right? So you heard about global moon sighting, right? You heard about calculations, and then the other position is naked eye sighting. So these are the 3 positions. So even with the wars and what positions people take, all of them are actually valid, So people go by global moon sighting, and global moon sighting is when you hear internationally there's an announcement when Ramadan starts. It's actually legit, Then you have people who use calculations, and how they do the calculations is that when they calculate when the birth of the new moon is going to be there, then by calculations it's going to show up here, right? So if the moon is not going to go through, it's not going to go around the world and not go through its course, right? And then there's naked eye sighting. So all of them are acceptable, but nothing trumps naked eye sighting. That is the sunnah. That is the sunnah, and we need to keep the sunnah alive. So we're going to explore just in this part some of the issues that are connected with global sighting and calculations. All right. All right, so global moon sighting is when you hear it from Morocco, Saudi Arabia, any country, Malaysia, any country that's, around the world, you usually hear an announcement that Ramadan has begun, the commencement of Ramadan, right? So one of the couple of issues that are with the global sighting from where we live at, right, is that the first one is there's problems with reliability. In some of those countries, they don't have like a set group of people who actually sight the moon, So, and then some of the countries, you will see that they'll tell people, like, whoever sees something, like, report it. So anybody can say, yeah, I saw it, and how are they verifying it? How are they verifying it? So then the second problem with global moon sight is that you get various reports. So one country may see it, and then another country say they didn't see it in another country. And then as the moon is going through its phases, it's going around the world in its orbit. So you're getting varying reports, and then, we're talking about getting reports from people who are in different time zones, different weather things that we don't really know in our region who saw what, right? And the third one is the delay in announcements due to distance. This is a problem because if we're waiting for someone in Morocco or Malaysia, of course, now you can call somebody, but there's still a delay before you actually get the news about the sighting. And then the other problem is what we've had is early announcements. Early announcements. There's been announcements when we talk about these moon sighting wars where people have announced the moon being sighted, and even by calculations, there was no way they could have sighted the moon. No way. So there's a thing about saying when the moon is birthed, and then it's a possibility it's supposed to be in a certain place at this time, but did you see it? So it was using that formula, people will say, okay, we sighted the moon, or then they'll make an announcement, right? And this has been a problem because with naked eye, if you're following the Sunnah, either you start at the end of the month, 29th night, 29th day, you look for it. If you don't see it, you wait till the 30th. If you don't see it, you complete 30 days. If you see it, then then that month is 29 days, right? And every month like that. So if you all know, at least in this area, there are three committees that we use that have been sighting the moon. They sight it every month. They sight it every month, and they've been doing it for decades. So this is reliable in our region, and even not just in our region, we have people as close as Trenton and Philadelphia, that have moon sighting committees that we contact, when we're doing it. So these are some of the issues with global moon sighting. And again, they are legit, but we should know this kind of stuff. So when we hear and the people becoming confused, and when does Ramadan started then? And one other point that we should remember, that it is not an obligation for everybody to start on the same day. It's not an obligation for everybody to start Ramadan on the same day. Of course, when Ramadan comes and it's the beautiful month, we've been waiting all year to get ourselves right, and it shows the unity of the Muslims, but it's not an obligation for everybody to start at the same day. So people in a different region or a different part of the world, they start on a different day, la bats, no problem. We should really know what the Sunnah is, though, right? So those are the issues with global moon sighting. So here, I don't know if you can see it on here. You see the picture. I got this PowerPoint. I'm doing the slides. So there's a picture I got that says a spectrum. Can you see that? Right here on the phone. We were supposed to have a projector so y'all can see this, but we ain't that advanced yet. We still in with Barney Rubble and them. We drive our cars with the feet hanging out the bottom. It's not showing. Oh, well, okay. Well, this is for the sisters upstairs. So here I got a picture of the spectrum. So they show the moon visibility. Let me just turn it around real quick. Y'all can see it on here. So you see that? So when they start doing the calculations, here they have the yellow part is where the moon is going to be birthed, right? And then the green, it shows, this is in our region, where it's most likely to be seen. So sometimes when they say that the moon is possible to be seen here based on calculations, they're not really seeing it. They're just saying that because, it's supposed to be here because of the way it's orbiting. But here is when you likely get to see it. So when you ever hear these arguments about visibility about the moon, this is some of the things that they're talking about. So a lot of times you'll see when people in the countries who are ahead of us, and they might not have seen the moon because it wasn't likely for them to see the moon. And then when it gets to our region, we can see the moon clear. You see what I'm saying? But it's still the sunnah, naked eye sighting. Nothing trumps it. Nothing trumps people seeing the moon. And that's a command in the Quran. Whoever sees it, whoever sights it. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, you fast when you see the moon. Okay. All right, so the next one is about calculations. All right, this one is very important. So two of the issues that are with calculations that we should be aware of is that the calculations, one, that the predetermined dates that are calculated already, they don't adjust those dates. So again, each month in the Islamic calendar is 29 or 30 days. It could be that every single month. And the only way you can adjust it is by going by the sighting, right? And then the other issue they have with calculations is early announcements. All right, so this is the one that's very important. All right, because this is one where the people start, pulling out their swords and ready to fight each other because, they saw the moon and, you're going against the sunnah and all these arguments you hear, and you'll be ready to hear. But now, hopefully after this, you ain't entertaining no arguments because we already have people who do naked eye sightings right in our region. All right, so here I have, you can't see it, but I took a screenshot of called the Halal Sighting Committee of North America. That's the one that we usually use, Halal Sighting Committee, Chicago Halal, and Central Halal Committee. Those are three references that we use, and they all use the kind of the same thing. So here from last year, if you remember last year, anybody remember when Ramadan started? It started last year. No, so here they had where they said that the new halal Ramadan has been sighted by naked eye sighting on Saturday night, April the 2nd, by experienced moonsighters in numerous locations across America. So this committee and the other two, they have a committee of people who go out and sight the moon every month, every single month. And so then they verify reports with each other, right? So when they sighted the moon here and completed 30 days of Sha'ban, so last year, Ramadan started on April the 3rd by local sighting. Now, on the calendar of I have the Saudi calendar, Qura. Anybody familiar with the Qura calendar? So it's the calendar that Saudi Arabia uses. I had a printout ready, but they have that calendar calculated. If you go online, look at the calendar, they have all of the dates for Eid and Ramadan to start already set. They already have it set. I have to show you the picture, but they have it set up until 2028. They have the date set, and I'm going to show you where the problem comes in. So here on their calendar, last year they started on the 2nd, which was a Saturday. They started on a Saturday last year. So of course, what happened last year? If you remember, they announced that Ramadan started on Saturday, right? We saying no, wait. Well, this is the 29th day. We didn't see no moon. We're going to complete 30 days of Sha'ban. We completed 30 days. We started on the 3rd. Certain people, they argue, you're not going to get the sunnah. Ramadan began, Ramadan Mubarak, and that's where the controversy comes in because once you see this picture, because it's a PowerPoint I'm doing, next time we do one, I have the screen back there with the lights. I'm going to give me a remote control too, we're going to step up our game, inshallah. Just be patient with us. But last year, we started on the 3rd locally. They started on the 2nd. Okay. Now here's the calendar I was telling you about. You can't see it, but it has 1442, which they started Ramadan on April the 2nd. This year they got Ramadan started slated for March the 23rd. Next year they got it calculated for March 11th. The year after that, which is 2024, 2025, they got it for March 1st. They got these dates already on their calendar. You can go look on Omokora, you can Google it, you can look at their calendar. They had the dates already preset. So now, this is once people start seeing these things, and there was one year I couldn't find the information where they actually fasted 28 days, and then there was another one they did 31 days where they had to pay fidya for people. They took that. I couldn't find it. I think they took this stuff down because they didn't want to people know how they botched up these moon sightings because they're not doing moon sightings. They have a calculated calendar, and of course, one of the arguments for some people, some fuqaha, they say that it's easier because, you could tell your job when you want your day off and you don't have to wait. Sometimes when we're waiting for a sighting, we be up 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night, Amir, we got to put the word out, man. People, especially me, I'd be like, man, I'd be this close, like, man, whatever they said, that's what we doing. Because people calling me, when the fast start? Just hold tight, and nobody wants to hold tight, because we might be at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then, people that went to sleep, did the Ramadan start? And all that stuff. But it's the sunnah. It's worth the hardship. So this is an article, it's called The New Arab, and they wrote an article, I gotta look at the date on here. It was on April the 20th. So in the UK, they stopped following Saudi because of the complications with some of these moon sightings. So they had an article that says, when is Ramadan and will Saudi Arabia get the date wrong again? Now, the first thing we should remember that this is not an attack on Saudi Arabia, because sometimes people think that every time you mention Saudi, this is the land, the holy lands. If you mention anything they do wrong, it's like you're speaking against the Prophet ﷺ. That's not what we're talking about. The land is holy. That don't mean the people are holy. That don't mean that everybody's right because they're from Saudi or because they're Arab, And we're not against Arabs. We're talking about what the Sunnah is from the best person to ever live, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who happened to be Arab. That's what we love, and everybody who followed them, regardless of race, right? So they wrote an article, and here's an excerpt from the article, and this is very important. It says, Saudi Arabia only uses moon sightings for the 4 religious months of the Muslim calendar. We already talked about the 4 religious months, or the sacred months, right? For the rest of the year, the Saudi Qura calendar is based on calculations. So the person who wrote this article, they said, I expect that, this was in 2020, he said, I expect that Saudi Arabia will carry out its Ramadan moon sighting on Thursday, which in itself concedes that they started the month of Sha'ban, the month that precedes Ramadan, a day too early. So what that means is that because they're not sighting all year and they got them calculated, at some point these things, they overlap. And people who are sighting them 29, 30 days and keeping the adjustments. Remember at the beginning of this, we said one of the problems with calculation that they're not adjusting their calendars every month. They are, and we already read it, I didn't make this up. They have these preset dates already for the next few years, right? So they only use moon sightings in the holy months. So now one of the issues that they be having is that, there's a hadith about the one who give the good news of Ramadan, that's like reward. And then so you have people trying to do this, but violating the sunnah itself by not saying that you saw the moon, right? So this is why, and we've been, in this area where we're surrounded by certain people, they give us flack. Oh, they ain't on it. They not following the sunnah. How are we not following the sunnah? And the Prophet ﷺ said, you begin to fast when you see the moon. This is Bukhari and Muslim. It don't get no more authentic than that. you know. So then he says about Saudi Arabia. So he was saying here that because they they started Sha'ban too early, they had to make an announcement that Ramadan started a certain day, so it wouldn't look like that they're going overboard with these dates. All right. So if I had a PowerPoint, this might be is this clear or are we okay? So now here has Ramadan in 2020. This was in Gulf News. So the date that they have is April the 24th, April the 23rd. So in the last one, he said he said that they will announce that the Ramadan would start on Thursday. So they put this article up on the 23rd of April in 2020, and it says Saudi Arabia announces April 24th, the first day of Ramadan. And guess what day that coincided with? Guess what day? The date they already had calculated on their calendar. The date they already had calculated. So they didn't say they sighted the moon, and this is the trick they play. Announce it, and then you'll see the High Judiciary Council of Saudi Arabia announces the beginning of Ramadan. They didn't say they cited anything. You know, it's almost like, you know, it's like a fugazi. You know, if I said it, then it must be authoritative. No, you didn't cite the moon. You're adjusting the sighting according to your calendar and not according to the sighting. That's problematic, and that's why they had a couple times that they got it really messed up. You know, and then people was checking them on it like, there's no way you seen the moon on this day. The day that you announced that you seen the moon, there's no way, even with calculations, that you could have seen the moon. No way. It's not even in the sky yet. How did you see it? So you got to look at these little intricacies. So now, and you'll hear it right now, if Ramadan happened, because it's possible, because we started, the first of Sha'ban was Tuesday for us locally. So that means possibly that Ramadan can start on the 22nd of March. They already saying that it's going to start on the 23rd. They already got in their calendar that it's going to start on the 23rd. So if you see them making these announcements and you see that locally we might see a sighting before that, then no, it's not us violating the Sunnah. People going out and seeing it. It's very important to know that, because they're making these announcements and then they're not being truthful. You know, they're not being truthful. So here they announced this on the 23rd that the 24th would begin the fast. That was 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now. All right. So they're adjusting the announcements to fit their calendar that's already calculated. And that's problematic, you know. So it ain't no war. They just messing up, you know. They just messing up the combat. It's not a war. So, and then for us, we shouldn't get into that. You know, if you consider yourself a part of this community or your local community, you really should just go what they do. Because some people in this area, they go with global sightings. If you're a part of that community, no problem, you know. But if you follow this community or our neighbors at Massachusetts, North, people in this region in Philadelphia, we all doing local sighting. You know, we all doing local sighting. Okay. Okay, I'll stop there with that. All right. So that moon sighting, was that clear? So I'll just take a few questions before we offer Salatul Asr. So it is very important to know that, because as we mentioned, it is not an obligation for everybody to start. It's nice when we all start. It's nice when they're in compliance and saying that they said the sighting, you know, because most of the times, you know, because even with weather and all of that are factors about sighting. So say if it's clear over there and they may have sighted it, and over here, by the time it gets in order or orbit on our side and it's cloudy or it's raining and we didn't see it, we're going by the Sunnah saying we didn't see it because of the weather. They may have started it, we may didn't see it, we complete, there's no problem. It's still following the Sunnah. You know what I mean? And it's nice when we all start together and we have all of, unity and harmony and everybody's happy, like Bobby McFerrin, but it ain't like that in real life. We just following the sunnah and making sure that we sight the moon. So be on the lookout when you hear these people, and you have some of these people, they be adamant about it, man. Saudi announced it, man. What, you ain't going with Saudi? Hell no. No, cuz. Nah, they announcing stuff, but what did they see? What did they view? That's the sunnah. There's another narration, I didn't bring it here, but there was one time with Ibn Abbas. We all know who Ibn Abbas is, right? One of the greatest companions, one of the fuqaha, one that the Prophet ﷺ made dua that he would be an interpreter of the Quran. There was one time he was in the land and it reached him that someone else said, Ibn Abbas, these people started fasting. He said, are you guys starting to fast? Ramadan's begun. So he basically said, we didn't see no moon. He said, yeah, but what's the name of them saw it? He said, man, the Prophet ﷺ taught us this. We're not giving it up for nobody. So in other words, when we see the moon, that's when we'll begin. And this was in two different regions, So he said, when we see the moon, that's when we'll start. That's not in our region. So that's another thing about global and, regional sightings and all that kind of stuff. So in the second part, I want to cover another very important thing, and that is about the time of suhoor. The time of suhoor. All right. So if anybody don't have any questions, we'll go right into the salat and then we'll resume right afterwards, inshallah. Any questions from the sisters? Okay, let me get this technology right. Stop that screen. All right, so if there are no questions, we'll break for the salat, and then we'll come right back in for the next part of the session, inshallah. I don't see any questions online. All right, so we're good there. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.